This is Donald Trump. We are, I guess, 2 days now out from landfall of Florence. We're in hurricane season. There's multiple hurricanes brewing in the Atlantic. You know, you're starting to read. It seems like this happens every year, and with good reason, because each year, it seems, brings another level of unprecedented hurricanes. And this is really, I was talking about this with Saul, if you can believe it, the other day, explaining to him fog. And, you know, he has these books that explain how the water cycle works, right? The water's on the ground, it heats up, it evaporates, it goes up into the clouds, it cools down, it rains, and it just keeps going around like this. And apparently what happens now with the hurricanes is because the oceans have begun to warm. There's more evaporation. It just creates an accelerant, and you've got these hurricanes that are coming off the water with a lot more water and a lot more intensity. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is dealing with the fact that that recently the state, or I shouldn't say the state, the government of Puerto Rico has announced that the official death tally in the wake of Hurricane Maria is 3,000 people. Some people are suggesting that it's actually as high as 4,100, 4,200. Donald Trump still wants to, in many respects, deny that. We see FEMA denying almost over 2,000 post-Maria funeral requests in terms of assistance from Puerto Rican citizens because they can't concede what the real number of deaths are. Here is Donald Trump having some type of, I don't know, meltdown. I mean, if Donald Trump was a robot, you would go in and say there's something wrong with the circuitry, talking about Hurricane Maria and the lack of response from the Trump administration.
Puerto Rico was incredibly successful. Puerto Rico was actually our toughest one of all because it's an island, so you can't truck things onto it. Everything's by boat. We moved a hospital into Puerto Rico, a tremendous military hospital in the form of a ship, you know that. And I actually think, and the governor's been very nice, and if you ask the governor, he'll tell you what a great job. I think probably the hardest one we had by far was Puerto Rico because of the island nature. And I actually think it was one of the best jobs that's ever been done with respect to what this is all about. Puerto Rico got hit not with one hurricane, but with two. And the problem with Puerto Rico is their electric grid and their electric generating plant was dead before the storms ever hit.
Pause it. That's not true. They weren't in great shape, but they were actually fully functional, and the vast majority, I don't want to say 100% of people had power on the island, but it was probably in the deep into the 90s.
Better than the 11 months.
Right, as opposed to the 11 months where like 75 to 90% of the people did not have power. But go ahead.
Hit. It was in very bad shape. It was in bankruptcy. Had no money. It was largely closed. And when the storm hit, they had no electricity essentially before the storm. And when the storm hit, that took it out entirely.
Pause it. They had electricity before the storm. Not essentially no electricity. Not only not essentially no electricity, no electricity. They had electricity.
Before the storm, and when the storm hit, that took it out entirely. The job that FEMA and law enforcement and everybody did, working along with the governor in Puerto Rico, I think was tremendous. I think that Puerto Rico was an incredible, unsung success.
There's more of that, right? Isn't there more in that? Like, he just keeps going on. Like, we had two others, but Puerto Rico is an island. I mean, the guy is having a complete meltdown over this. And like he does everything, though. But the bottom line is there is a huge portion of this country that all they need is that, and then they can just move forward and ignore this stuff. You know, 17 years out, we talk about the 3,000 people who died in 9/11. The 3,000 people who died as a function of the just incredibly slow response by our own government to a natural disaster. Not so much. Folks can move on that. It's just like there's a huge portion of this country that just needs, doesn't even have to be a good lie.
Was that you that talked to the guy who was really impressed by the mother of all bombs dropping?
Yes.
Like what Trump said about the ship hospital being anchored into Puerto Rico, that's like that sort of thing, right? They just need a little trinket or something.
The only thing it reminds me of is, I think I've told the story. I directed I'm with Busey. And on day one, when I first met him, he would not shoot in an area that we were in like, I think it was Taos. And they have these vortexes around. And he's like, I don't want to shoot at this wrong place. And we're in this field. And I went out there, and the first thing I said to him, I said, oh, did they not tell you why we're shooting here? No, why? Because this is the only place within 300 miles where you can grow organic garlic, because they say because of the vortexes. I don't know if I buy that, but that's what they say. And he's just like, we're shooting here. Like I totally made it up, but it was just like, there's a reason. Oh, okay, good. All right, good. We're shooting here. And that's basically what's happening out with the rest of the country. Oh, yeah, no, it's the best ever. That's what's going to be different when the Democrats, if they take over the House, there's actually going to be pushback and investigations on all of this. You can bet there's going to be investigations about the response to Hurricane Maria. You can bet. There should be.
Yeah, because Democrats are so good at holding Republicans accountable for things that they did.
I mean, the Democrats are pretty good in terms of at least doing the investigations. And in the context of agencies, as much as I completely have, for almost 2 decades now, maybe more, criticized Bill Clinton, FEMA was one of the things that he did well.
You're right. They are good with data, provided that the Trump administration doesn't destroy the data before they get in there.
I think these investigations are going to be good. What they do with them, that's another question. But at the very least, there's going to be an understanding of what went wrong. I think some agencies will improve, but that is what I think the Trump administration, not just the Trump administration, the Republican heads of these agencies are also concerned about.